Hi, I'm Joe Barbieri. I do the local history room and the Rockland room and a lot of our local history and genealogy programs. So thanks for coming out tonight. We've got Larry Kigler, who probably has a bigger postcard collection than anyone that you know. So we're going to see some things that'll be familiar to us, and we'll also learn a lot too. And I'll take it away because we're here for the postcards.
I'll just introduce myself. I'm Larry Kigler. I'm the Clarkstown Town historian. My family has been in Rockland County since the 1870s. I got into this as just sort of a hobby. My father actually went to a garage sale back in the 1950s or so, and he bought all these postcards, these big books of postcards. Now, what were postcards? Postcards were the email of the day. If you had to go someplace, I'm talking 1900 to 1930s, 1940s, you'd write a postcard and you get the train at 3 o'clock, and you could mail it today, and it would get there, in the morning, and you could put them in the train. And that was the email, that was the way they communicated. So he actually gave them to my wife, Sherry, and I sort of started, there were a lot of Rockland County postcards and pictures from all over the world. I started collecting the Rockland County ones. I have over 7,000 different Rockland County postcards today. So I decided to give talks on it, and I know a lot of oral history, and you have to take everything I say with a grain of salt. Some of the stuff is oral history, is what I've heard. May not be true, but to the best of my knowledge, I give a disclaimer that I'll try to explain what the story is. This is an interactive talk. I want you to stop me if you have any questions as I'm talking, because it doesn't bother me. I'll just pick up right again on, just so that we'll keep going and I'll answer any questions that I get. If you want to go back at the picture, take a look, I'll go back. There's a few people I just want to thank, for introducing the library. Brandon Dunning has given me some stuff in the Historic Society. 99% of the stuff that you see tonight, I own. And I probably have 5 times as much as what I'm actually going to show you. It's just hard, but if you have a specific question about something, just ask me. I'm not, I don't get flustered. You got a question?
No, it's whether the CEO's down in Dallas.
Well, it's not just New City. You have to understand, I'm giving a talk on May 18th at the West Nyack Library about all of Rockland. And there's 31 different areas in Rockland. So as of today, there's not quite that many, but going back over the years, there are little areas, tonight you're gonna see Centenary. What's Centenary? That's North New City, it's a little area. There's gonna be, on the park, what's it called, park community, this park, down, no, down, well, there's Dells, there's all different little areas in the city. It'll come back to me as I start talking. Well,
Kennedy Dells.
Kennedy Dells, and then, but there's up off of, there's the little lake there, New City Park. Oh, I'm sorry. Even my wife is telling me, okay, so the problem is, there's so many little things to think about, and remember, it's difficult. So, but just stop me if you have any questions. I'm going to do the best I can tonight to show you what New City used to look like, whether you realize it or not. If you travel around the world in the 1950s or 60s or 70s, I'm saying you go to China, you went to Japan. If you looked at the back of the card, where was it printed? Either in Dexter Press, which was like the postcard king of the world, and in Pearl River, and then later on in West Nyack. So some of these are Dexter Press cards. A lot of these are real photo postcards. What a real photo postcard is, there's only a handful. If somebody went out with a camera, took a picture of that building, and printed it on like 10 postcards and sold it in the local store. And some are real rare, some, were, just millions were made, but most of these real photos are very rare. This, now we'll start at Greetings from New City. This is just a generic card. They printed Greetings from New City on it. Doesn't matter where you are, you can put it anywhere you want. This is a farm scene, but doesn't necessarily have anything to do with New City. You know, it just has a picture there. I was going to describe this. I'm going to go back 1 second, just to go back to this again. Now, where did the name New City come from? Now, the expression, there was a Cackyack patent from the British government back in the 1600s. Then it became Orange County, and it was Habsburg, back up. Orange County. Then in 1798, Rockland County split from Orange County, became separate. Also, in 1791, Clarkstown was actually part of Habsburg, and they split. Clarkstown became Clark's, there was a Clark. Dave Clark was one of the people, and they just called it Clarkstown. New City did not have a name until 1798, when Clarkstown, when they formed. I'm sorry. When in 1798 they formed the government for Rockland County, and they said we need a central place, and they said, here, we're going to form a new city. That's the tale that's been told, and that's where it's actually the center of the county, and became the county seat. New City today is still only a hamlet. It doesn't mean anything. It's part of Clarkstown. We're not a town. We're not incorporated. So that's just a little history on Clarkstown. So we'll get moving. This was the train station. Now, in around 1876 or 1870 something, the tracks came in, it started in New City, and you could take the train down to Nanuet and down into Jersey. This was the little train station. This was the school up on the hill, Old Schoolhouse Road. That lasted until, I think, 1980 when it burnt down. But the train station, unfortunately, just disappeared. This was the train at the station. Just north of the station, there was a turnaround where the train, they put the train on the track and they actually turned it around to head south again. Came north and then went back south. That little building was there up until last month. Unfortunately, this is the way it looked. This is around 1920, 1930 or so. This is the way it looked about 10 years ago. And unfortunately, the ultimate demise, you see that this repair that was it. We tried to save it for years, but it was just too far gone. And unfortunately today, it's gone. For me? It's in Vanderbilt, yes. It was behind that building. You couldn't really see it, but it was in Vanderbilt, Rubber York. The train ran south along 304, and it was just the train was a single lane track that went down. There was a stop called Durant. There was a stop called Germans. Then all these little stations. And they were just little shots. After you left here, 304 used to just be a little 2-lane dirt road, and then it became a 2-lane road, then became a 4-lane road. Also, I want to say that I grew up here. I'm almost 70 years old. I've seen all this change, and not for the better. You say certain things are for good, certain things are for bad, but when I grew up here, it was all rural. There was nothing but farms here. There was nothing but farms here. Yes.
You mentioned Durant. I don't know if most people would know that it's a gene. The three stops were Bardonia, Durant, and then Vanderbilt Station.
Yes.
Durant was because of the family. Durant family. Durant is at the end of Laurel Road. I live next to the Durant house. There's a big stone house up on Laurel Road. And that's where the Durant family lived. And The lady who lived in New York City, who was an artist, actress.
That was only in Tiffany, that was in Tiffany.
Not actually, that lady.
Then she, yes, they had an art studio there. Yeah, I'm not worried about it.
She was married to Ellen Duran.
Yeah.
Son, but I won't go on, but.
Well, we'll get to that later on.
Okay.
We will get to it, the house is haunted, you know,
Well,
it's, you know, there's all, you talk about, I and my wife actually had an experience, one of the houses here in Rockland, and we went up a flight of steps, and we both, at one point, felt this heaviness on us that we couldn't walk up the steps, so it's like, I do kind of believe in it, but there's a whole bunch of stories about Southbound Road and what's it? Linda Zimmerman wrote a book about these things in Rockland County. All right, this is the Vanderbilt store, which is still there. That's the building, and you'll see these are the sheds in the back that just ripped down. Unfortunately, right behind this is where the train station is, right up there on the hill. And it's funny. You see here this set of boots that it's a strange thing. They must went out, walked in the mud. You know, you do want to go and drag dirt into the building, so they hung it up on the front, on the front porch. Okay, so this happens to be a real photo picture, and that's the way it looks today. Of course, next week it'll be, but yes, go ahead.
Why was there a difference?
The train, believe it or not, the trains in the United States actually started in Piermont, believe it or not. And there was the Piermont line, there's the New City line, there's the Erie line, and the woman, I'm trying to remember her name, but she wanted her husband to build, they were very wealthy and whatever, she wanted him to build these, she heard about this and she thought this would be a great thing for the United States. So they started it actually here in Piermont, and then the people wanted to move the goods from one thing on, they wanted to move the goods from Rockland County and outside areas down to the city. This originally was for moving goods down to the city, right? Then, because there was a freight station, and also then it became a commuter line. Later on, in like 30s and 40s, it became a commuter line. This operated up till the 1960s. I believe it ended in the 1960s. So, but people commuted into New York City from here, and it was a new form of transportation. The roads weren't that great, so it was much quicker to put something on the train, take it down to the city, went down Hoboken, and they threw the tunnel, or otherwise you had to put the train like on a barge and take it across the river. So that's why it was the train. All right. Now, does anybody know there were airports in Rockland County? Up until recently, yeah. Christie Airport, yeah. Unfortunately, we're the only county in New York State that does not have an airport. But there were 17 or 18 separate airports in Rockland County. There used to be, Colca had a plane in his backyard. That's on Scruntown Road. Colca he had his own plane. This is Christie's, where he did a lot of commercial flying, and he did a lot of pictures and stuff. Unfortunately, his family gave it to me to see that I wasn't able to get hold of it. This was another one of the pilots at this was at Christie's Airport. Then what? So then okay, get me right, Larry. This airport was on Brewery Road down. Just slips me the name of it. It'll come, whatever. But I don't have the name, but it was down on Strawtown Road, down on Strawtown Brewery. This was this is my friend's grandfather, and this is two of the sheriffs, and this is the plane. This is actually an Everling passenger. This is one of the Everlings. Everling was also a big family here in Rockland. They had, I'll talk about them more in a few minutes, but they had the airport down there. It was just a little local thing. This was a much earlier on in Christmas. Then here's downtown Metropolitan City. You know, dirt roads, you know, this is across from the courthouse. So you gotta remember, I'm gonna talk about a bunch of the hotels as we go along. This is 1930s. The reason there were a bunch of hotels in town because it was the county seat. And there wasn't the Palisades Parkway, there wasn't the Thruway. People would have to come up here to argue cases for the city. They'd take the train up, they'd stay in one of these hotels, and they go across to argue, and then go back home. So there were a bunch. New City had a bunch of resorts, which I'll talk about as we go along. But this is the business district. This building is still here. This was across the courthouse. This is roughly 19. This happens to be a Dexter card. Go back. This is a Dexter card. It has this little thing on it that was made in Pearl River. I took this picture during the Reconstruction. Whether it made New City better or not, I really could argue that. I don't really think. I don't know. It's so, but that's what it was. This is an older picture now. If you look, this was the building, and I kind of have a little out for you. This is the Elms Hotel, where the jury used to come. They used to have trials across the street. The juries would come across the street here. I can show another picture in a little while. But you see this building. This was the one that was stone now. That was ripped down and replaced with that new one. This is the Elms Hotel. Nice place to come and visit. This is just another. The Elms Hotel was the big thing here. It changed over the years. Different people owned it. Different people managed it. This is a much later picture of it, but you still see the stone part of it. This goes back. This is 1910, 1905. This is actually this is actually a real photo. It's a picture that I put. And it was some celebration they had. I can't really read. It was kind of blurry, but this is actually what the picture was. They're having some celebration. A lot of parties were held here. A lot of the events for the town were held here. This is the inside. This is 1960, where they brought the juries in. The jurors in, and they'd sit there, or they'd go across to the other hotel. This is the Kevin Landau Park today, which was where the Elms Hotel stood. Unfortunately, it burned down one night.
When did it burn down? I remember it when it burned down.
In the city, in the mid-60s or so, it's somewhere in that time period. I don't know exactly, but
everyone sat on the courthouse lawn.
Watch it burn, yeah.
Remember Mother taking us.
Well, yeah, it was a big event, and so burned out. Nothing else going on, so we decided to go over to the hotel, So, this is New City. This is 1900, and you see in front of the courthouse, and this little gate, and that's looking south on Main Street. This was one of the hotels. There were 5 or 6 hotels in town. This New City Hotel. Then there was a ball held at the New City Hotel. This is 1863. Well, this was a little invitation that went out until some proprietor was, and then this is Lawrence Hotel, which was up the street a little further. I have a map that shows what everything was. Somebody else had done that. Yeah. Every town needs a car dealership, right? Did you know that New City had a Chevrolet dealer? And the building still stands. You recognize the building. It's very easy. You buy pizza there. Domino's, exactly. If you take a look at this building, if you take a look at it, the stone is still there, and it's Domino's Pizza today. The courthouse is further up the street, but they had a Chevrolet dealership. Okay, they were all proud to stand out front, you know, and they sold gas there. Now, this is the paper box factory. It still exists. Want to guess? I'll tell you it's across the street from Domino's. Okay, can you figure out what building it is? And it still looks very much the same. It's the Roberts Building, which is a little bit further up. And it's still the same building. There was only a couple little manufacturing places in New City. It was the paper box factory. Then going up the street a little bit, there was this building. They sold ice cream. It was just like a little convenience store. It was a pharmacy. And many may have shopped there because that's what there's the store. It's the Rexall drugstore. And look how busy Main Street is. So it had there was a little hardware store here. There's a gas station. You know, I remember growing up here. You know, Mario's Pizza was there. You know, that's what gave me diabetes. You know, drink like 2 Pardon me?
What year is this for?
This is 1960s, 1965, 1970. Maybe the 60s.
Wow.
There's cars there, but here, sleepy little Rockland Seed awaits to rapid growth. You know, this was 1966. So you can tell by the cars, and this was a newspaper article that somebody did in the journal. It was the journal. Oh, New York Times. Oh, I'm sorry. The New York Times.
Yeah.
And that's the Rexall store. It still looks basically the same. If you look at the sides of it, it was econs. And if you look, the stone, if you go drive by, the stone is still there. It still looks the same. Now, this compliments of Brian Duddy that now you think you know everything about Rockland County, New City, this, and Brian posted this a few months ago online, but this store was on Red Hill Road. It was a little drugstore. As you go up, and I think we figured out which building it is. As you go up Red Hill Road, on the left, right before it turns, and behind us where the stone wall is, this house still stands there. And the druggist moved here from Nyack, and I don't know, it just lasted for a short time. But this was a picture that it was a family picture that he had gotten, and just wanted it, and that you learn new things continuously. I've been collecting my whole life, and you never know what you find. So this is a new addition to back to downtown New City. This is Main Street looking north. Now, everybody thinks Photoshop is new. Let me tell you, Photoshop is not new. This car is not in this picture. What it is, what they used to do, they did this little overlay. They take the picture, and then on a clear glass slide, they have this car, and they put it on top to make it look more modern or older. I'll show you. Even I should have showed you at the first picture at the train station. Half those things weren't there. They just overlaid them on to create things. They take things out. They got telephone poles. They added in telephone poles. They put horses in. There's all kinds of things. So Photoshop is not something new. As everybody thinks. Pardon? Yeah. This is the street. That's what it looks like today. This is Upper Main Street. This is diagonally across the courthouse. And this is where the Carvel Shopping Center is. Okay, you'll see a scene in a minute. As I go on, they're different. Not that I'm jumping around, just different areas that I'm trying to explain, and then we'll go back and forth on. This is Main Street looking north again. It could be anywhere, it could be anywhere in the world, but it is New City. Now look, this is Main Street looking north. We're standing in front of really Starbucks now, believe it or not. Starbucks is over here now. These houses are still there. If you take a look, if you look at these, there's 3 houses in a row. no overlook, they're still sitting there. There's still the people, there's still regular houses that haven't been torn down. I know there's been a lot of change coming to the Main Street corridor over the next few years. But actually, there are the houses. This is Lower Main Street, which I'm not sure where, I think this is the other end of Main Street, sort of towards Nanuet. The Upper Main Street was considered the far end towards towards the library. And Lower Main Street was at the other end, where Bennigan's was and Lowe's. This is Upper Main Street again. This is very rural looking, not many houses. This is probably the oldest thing that I have. Well, I have some maps that are older, but this is a ribbon from the Architectural Society, the Rockland County, Rockland County. This is 1856 or 58. It's just a little red ribbon that was given out at the fair. Now, one of the big things was in 1908, 1909, they decided to have the Rockland County Industrial Fair. There was an article in the paper about it. They got together. They decided, and where this was held was right where ShopRite is. Now, you're going to see some other pictures that this is all part of that area in New City. It was a grandstand. Wow. With a track. Where this is how you got there. There were no cars. Came there by horse and buggy. And they had a track that ran there, the county fair. They had all these 4-H exhibits. I happen to have a booklet from this. This is one of the races that went on. They held it there for a number of years. This was just at the fair. These were some little pictures I had. Now, does anybody recognize this little road here? I'm going to move to the next scene so you can tell it better. Does anybody recognize this road and drive it, probably driven it 100 times, 1,000 times? Nope. It's New Hampstead Road. There's the courthouse. Okay, and all these this is coming down New Hampstead Road into the town of New City. There's a better view of it. This is the Everling Shoe Factory, which you're going to see a picture in a minute. That the Everlings were big around it. It's Everling Drive, named after them. And this was the Everling Shoe Factory. They all got together. There was a bunch. These came from what's his name? No, Everling. His first name. Frank. Yeah, this was his family's. So there's a couple of things from Frank's family. Yeah, they had a number of things in town. This report, we'll get back to it in a minute. This is the original courthouse. This was it was in the front yard, but they built a new one behind it. This one, then just another picture of it. This doesn't look. If I'm going to this, tell me. I have hundreds of pictures of the courthouse. This is one with the rock. The rock is still there. This is then. Oh, how did that get in there? That's what it's in the one. But this is. I have this picture. This is about 24 inches by about 18 inches. They lined all the cars up one day. Took this picture. The thing is, I can't figure out exactly what year it is. Somebody has to know what those cars were. It's somewhere between 1915 1920. This was done by the photographer Berkey from Nyack. Yeah, that's a statue in the front one, which is still there. The parts of it may have been, but most of it was brick. I think maybe the first building, which we couldn't have had a picture of 1798, but most of it was built out of brick.
Who is the statue?
I don't know. But I did, let's see if it says. Here he is in the front of the building, and if you notice, what's across the street here? Nothing. This is where the Carvel Shopping Center is. This is Main Street, and that's Congress Road. I'm not sure which side of this, but now I have to go out and find out what it is. And it's put it in my next door. For him? The 20s. Well, this is 1940s, so this is after it. This is after it. Then this is present day, looking out from the front steps. That's kind of what it looks like today. It still looks pretty much the same. That's another picture of action. That's what it looks like today.
And doesn't the PA movie, one look at it?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah, there are murals and stuff inside of the yes, which I don't think they let me come in. Next to the courthouse, at the side, if you've never been there, is Dutch Gardens, done by this Mary, or she designed this, and they brought in a bunch of I think Italian artists when they built this, and they just renovated it recently. This is an aerial view, 1939, of the courthouse, and see New Hempstead Road. There's nothing really. This is Little Tour Road right here. Because this is old New Hempstead Road. It used to go down. You see, as it was Little Tour, it went that way. So it goes like that. Right? Is that it? I don't know. Next door, no, excuse me. Yeah, that's newer. That's newer. These are back to Dutch Gardens. I apologize, for these, just some of the things in Dutch Gardens, the walls and things. Now, this was the Everling Post Office. It was on the courthouse. It was roughly on the side of the courthouse, but out in front of it. It was the post office. It was the also the phone. The operator was there. Like, bring the operator, be there, bring down. It was a party line. Everybody, and it was the generals. And I put this in because this was my phone number growing up that we had. I don't know how many of you remember, but you could dial just the 4 numbers. And you didn't need any 4, it was just there. So this was my number growing up, and I just threw it in there. And the reason I said because we're talking about the party lines and stuff. This was New City. This was the Everlings. He was the postman. That was his horse and buggy. Today, they're rebuilt. The Historic Society owns this today, and they're rebuilt. They're in the process of rebuilding it. It's in some place in Connecticut. They're going to send me pictures, but they didn't, what it looks like. But they're in the process of redoing. Downtown Metropolitan New City again. That's where the post office general store was. The courthouse was there. This is the Elms Hotel, and that's Congress Road. Now you can see in this picture, you can definitely tell that they were added in. This car was not there. This car was not there. Of course, I don't think it was there either. They added that in. Yeah, that was and they actually had power telegraph lines. Here's the old schoolhouse on Schoolhouse Road. Now, this was really the first school, the first main school that was built. There was a library in the basement, which is the first library for New City, which eventually then it moved to around. But there was a boys' side and a girls' side. This was, I don't know which was which, but they had separate classes. There's some of the rubbigans, you know, that out of recess ripping up the grass. That's, they all like to get, you know, they always do pictures of the kids going to schools. Now, somebody did write to me that they went to school here, you know, and their parents went to school here, you know, I did not. I went to Woodland, I went to Little Tour, I went to Woodland, I went to the junior high. Did you go to Woodland? No, I didn't go to Woodland. No, I went to New City. I lived in New City. Yeah, but that's where, now, this is the first library, and it was across the street from Town Hall. It's where the fire department is today. Then moved along. It was across from the church. And to show you before this, there's the newer library today. I don't have the picture. It pretty much looks the same today. So this is the way that building looked. Before it was a library, it was a garage. It was a contractor's garage. Then they had a fire department at Forester Hall, which we'll get to. They had a ball one day, so starting with the fire department now. That this is Allen. Actually, it was Orange Town that came to New City to do this. 75 cents. It was expensive. 1924. People did it. This is the first firehouse for New City, which was, well, it's not, I'm not saying it was actually the first, but it was over on Demarest. It's gone, and it's roughly where between the between the town hall and where the port and the New City courthouse. This is the original New City fire truck, and I only recently learned this was actually originally, it was a used truck that they bought. It came from West Nyack. They bought it for $475 or something from the West Nyack Fire Department when they upgraded theirs. This is another picture. This is the crew out in front of the fire department. This is the firehouse. It's gone lately. They've replaced it with a brand new one, but it was across from Town Hall. That's what it looks like today. Yeah. We did yes. This was on the corner at 304 in Congress Road. And it had a bunch of different names. It was really, the Union Hotel, it was Readers, and then it was Jury's Tavern. Who parked it down? Did you park it down? Too much, yeah. So, so that's where many of the jurors went. This is just an advertisement on the back for Dexter Press, and you would throw it in. You could buy these pictures. See, they give a description of the hotel, but then they sent these out as you could buy, if you wanted your card printed like this, you could buy, $12,000 for $75. It's just whatever you want. This is before that's where it was.
Yeah.
Yes.
I worked there forever.
This is just a matchbook from Jury's Tavern. Gives you the directions how to get there. One second, go back. That was it was just, but everybody knew where it was. It was a simple direction, you didn't need navigation to get there. There was nothing else between point A and point B, It just got there. This is the Berta Hotel. This was on Berta Avenue.
See on that, where.
Go back.
That was still on the brick.
Yeah.
That's what it is. On the top.
Yeah.
Up there.
Ah.
The brickyards.
Right.
no 304 until 1965.
Yeah, so this would have been early, yeah, it would have been earlier. It may not have matched up. See, 304 could have been in town. You know, and they may have called Main Street 304 one time, and because it ended. 304 actually ended in New City. It wasn't. It didn't. It ended up by town hall. And that comes, well, actually, that's New Jersey 304. It just, the way on 59, maybe it just didn't line up, and then they later on moved it all, they put it together. You guys are looking more in depth, detail than I'm studying, Yeah, okay. This is, it was just a resort on Burger Road. But there were a lot of resorts up here. Rockland County was an area where people came up from the city during the summer because the city got hot. There were a lot of like Joy Acres and over in Spring Valley, there were files in different places. There were a lot of resorts that people came up to. You come up here during the winter to relax or what. That's what New City. That's what Rockland County was known for. New City only had a couple of resorts. This is 2nd Street Hotel. This is where the New City Clarkstown courthouse is. That's one of the rooms inside when they put TV. And I think they even had an air conditioner or something. It's like, this is French Farm, which is off Brewery Road. It's where they recycle now. It's the composting place on Brewery Road. And that's where this was. This was another place where you come and stay. They had a lake, you go swimming. This is the Farm Guild. I don't know anything about this. This was on the corner of Southbound and Zipper Road. I've never been able to find out too much about this. It's Guild Farm. But you can see this is the corner over here. This house is still there. This is Zipper Road. And this is Southbound Road there.
Your fresh air because I grew up there.
The Guild?
They had a camp there.
They had the Guild Farm. And where was it actually located?
They were right
at the bottom at the tip of the road?
Right off the Zipper to the right before Southbound Road.
Okay.
Right after the stream.
It was right after the stream. Okay, yeah.
And there was her signature.
Yeah,
The common.
go expand it. Yeah, and so, it was like a camp. All right. That's a better picture looking. Now, this is Chestnut Grove Farm, which Chestnut Grove is up Little Tour Road, right past the gas station, right past the Shell station. On the right, if you go past the Shell station on the right-hand side of the road, is Chestnut Grove Farm. Or Chestnut Grove. They had a nursery there, and in the later years. So I know this goes back further than that. Pardon? Past Bronx. Yeah, way past Bronx. Another mile up the road from Bronx.
We overlook it.
Oh, you overlook it?
It's where the nurse be done.
Yeah. This is Durant Pond. City. I call it, we'll get to that. We'll get back to that. This was down where the reservoir was. This is long gone. It was along Shoretown Road there. Another picture of this. Now here you go. This is when they were building the reservoir. Notice how much of the mountain is still there, and you see it was above ground. This is 19. around 1950 something. Because they had just finished, they were building, they had just dug out the reservoir. This is the causeway that we're on. This would be Congress over here. The Davies Farm over here. Davies Farm is back over. The house is somewhere around over here. Now there you go, crossing the causeway as they're building it. You know, it opened up New City to Congress. The other side of the tracks is. Gotta be careful. You know, for me. Over on this side, all the little roads. Let me go back. Yeah, it's hard. Oh, here's the roadway. See, there's the roadway right there. That's what you're looking at, and the little bridge is a little further up. They just, a couple of years, that big rock was out there. There had too many kids swimming out to it, so either they blasted or they pushed it. I think they blew it up. There were too many kids hanging out on it, so they blew it up. But yes, that was the roadway that went through the reservoir. And this is the new road. Going east. Towards Congress. Yep. There's the bridge, then maybe I'm backwards. Is that the bridge? Yeah, no. I could be wrong. That's going that way. Yeah. That's like the forest building. Another view of Lake the Forest. This is Buckley Farm. This is on the corner of Phillips Hill and Main Street. That there was a huge farm there. Most of the buildings in the back were built. There was a half-mile tract. Most of the buildings in the back were built from lumber from the 1939 World's Fair. They brought it all up here and built the farms and things. This house may have been there before that. There may have been other things that I'm not 100% sure. But the house is where the post office is today, approximately. These were the writing stable. That was the entrance to it before they ripped it down. Now, Squadron A is I don't know if you know what Squadron A is. There was a Squadron A troop that was stationed out of New York. They were just a marching group of soldiers. They were located in the city, but all their barns and everything were here in the city. They would take the train from the city up, get off at the train station, and march down what today is really 304 or a path there on Main Street over to here to practice. There was a whole book written about it, and it only mentions a little bit about the city where the train was, but that's where Squadron A came. That's where Squadron Boulevard came from, and it's right over here, right out front, in the lowlands there. There's a barn there, and one of the horses. Yes, they had the horses in the barns. I don't know. They got all small for some reason. They got really small for some reason. Whatever. Just now, does anybody? You're giving it away already. Come on, get ahead of it. Does anybody recognize this building? And it was already given away. This is where St. Augustine started. This was today. That's what it looked like, and that's what it looks like today, partially. It's the animal hospital. They dug out the front of it. This was the building. They bricked it. And 41 picture. So they bricked it. This is the parsonage next door. Then they dug out the whole front. It looks like this. And then they moved over to Main Street, which was far too small. There was a fraternal organization. Then these were little wooden structures. Then they built this as Forester's Hall, and then it became St. Augustine's. Then they ripped it down, and they built, this is what it looked like. See, it used to look like this. Then they added the steeple in the front. And then today, it looks like this. That's the progression of how things moved along, you know, and the school is closed, it's somebody else's street. This is, yeah, go back, yep, no problem. Which one? This one? That's, we went back too far. Then we get to this building. Does anybody recognize it? You know, it's unless you're part of this. This is New City Jewish Center. That was the original house on Schoolhouse Road, and that's what it looks like today. It was that house was out in front. I went to school there. I went to religious school and services there. That's what it looks like today. There's a plate from there. That was the original building. Anybody know where this is?
Yeah.
It was the Dime Savings Bank after this, after they ripped it down. And then that's what's there today. We'll go back. Just to show the progression of what, you know, what the building went through a couple of changes. They ripped it down, then gave the Dime Savings Bank, and then they moved here. That's on Strawtown Road, right? Yeah, Strawtown. Then we have the Methodist Church, which still is, you know, which was on 2nd Street, or, you know, on what they used to call it Main Street. Originally, believe it or not, Maple was Main Street years ago. Before then they moved it over one block, believe it or not. That was the parsonage for the church. There were a bunch of, it was like one of the most photographed buildings in New City for some reason. Just over the years, then they had, this is 18, Oils was president, and this is 1894. And why have so many pictures? But then they moved here. Unfortunately, this is the woman who designed this building, and unfortunately, the building's been condemned. That there's structural issues with the building. This is what I was told, that they're not allowed to use this for services anymore. I don't know what's going to happen to it because of the unusual curve to it. Something happened to the structure, and they can't use the chapel. This is what I was told. I believe it's true. Yeah, okay. That then this is what it looks like today. This was the parsonage to the church. It's right next door. And today it looks like this. If you see, it's the same house. Just the porch has been closed in. It's still there. Go back to Maple Avenue. If you look straight down, this is Maple Avenue looking north. There's the firehouse. And that's another view of it. This is called the Garraway Corridor, or whatever that's called. Tell the story by itself. This is just more Maple Avenue. This is what it looks like today, that church. It's like, the Methodist Church, it's another church, I forget. The Korean. Yeah, all right. I'm glad you people are here, you know. What do I know? You know, this is another view looking down Maple again. You're looking up Maple again. Now, this is First Avenue. This house was there until a couple of years ago. There it is, but they didn't take a picture of it. They knocked it down, put up a parking. You know, that's town board, and they've knocked the house down. It's a parking lot Now, does anybody recognize this building? You have to have lived here for many years to know where this was. This is the sheriff's department. And it was there, the house they used for years, go back. They knocked it down and built the sheriff's department. And there was a big lake in the back of it. We used to go ice skating there and play in the woods. Because when I grew up here, there was really nothing. We made it, we had our own activities in the woods. We just went off. We'd go out at 8 o'clock in the morning, and say, "You just back in time for dinner," and that was it. They didn't worry about us. We just went off. You're still wandering? Yes. Yep. In all those ponds. This now, I don't know where this is. Maybe somebody knows where this is, but I don't know where Brush's Grove. I'm trying to find this on maps or whatnot. There's a couple of pictures of it. I just don't know where it is. This was another picture of it. I thought it might have been on Little Road, but I'm not 100% sure. This is Lake Lucille, which is in my backyard. It was a very, when it was originally formed, it was a very German area. It was very anti-Semitic and other things. And Jews weren't allowed to live here. It's changed over the years. But this is along the lake. Yes, they dredged the whole thing. Yes, they dredged the entire lake, and about 25 years. About 25 years ago, they dredged the whole. Because what happened from all the construction in the area, all the silt had come down into the lake, and it filled it in. It was only like 6 or 8 inches deep.
And what about the small on Collier?
Yeah, I'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
New City Park. That's what I couldn't remember before. Well, that's the one I couldn't remember. Collier Avenue and New City Park. We'll get to that in a minute. This is Davy's house. And this is Davy's Lake across the street. Well, this is behind that. It was a resort area and came up with swimming. And another view, it was like, you go there during the summer. Now, I didn't know this, but there was a hotel there also. It was the building, it was the house out front. I never knew it was a hotel. I found this part about 5 or 6 years ago, and it was never any mention to it being Davy's Lake Hotel. But I guess it was. Then here's another stuff. Don't yell it out unless you know it. Hopewell Summerland. Still there, still exists. For another fresh air fund, Camp Jelani. That all these buildings were in the back. Oh, that one doesn't belong. Oh, but these were all Summerland camp that became Jelani. And a lot of those buildings were used up until recently. They only knocked it down maybe in the past 10, 15 years for housing and other things.
Yeah, they only cleaned it up the past year.
Yeah. This is Old Doc Wilson's boxing club. The only reason it's here, this was in front of ShopRite, right between the Dukes of Oil and the gas station. This was this little boxing club this guy had. And he had some famous boxer. Joe, who was the boxer? He told the story. It was somebody who came up one day, there was some famous boxer worked out there. It was just a local thing. Now, this is Camp Gorge.
Yeah, I know that. A friend of mine lived there. On Sawmill Road.
Okay, so tell us about it. Why was it called Camp Gorge? Very simple. Norwegian. They were all Norwegian. And that's where it was for the village, yes. Yeah, right by Zippy Fleischer's house is in the woods there. And there, it was a big camp. They had a baseball field, they had a church. They had, you know, this was a relatively big camp. They had dining hall, they had cabins, they had the main house. It was a big camp. This is the inside of the dining hall. This is, you don't realize how big it was. They had a swimming pool. You know, that it was on both sides of the road there. And now it's town land. These are the kids practicing. And I don't know where this was, but this was part of it. They have it someplace on the property, but I've been there plenty of times. I don't know where this was. Now here, this is an aerial view, and we're looking at this over here. Does anybody know what this is? It's kind of hard to see. That's Delwood. This is North New City. This is Lake Lucille. And these are this is farmland here. This is Havisbrook, and this is High Forest State Park, you know, High Forest Mountain. This is before Little Tour Road was here. There's some power lines that ran down this side. And yeah, southbound road was over roughly in there. There's Delwood. Now, that I don't know if people know about you know, Zucker and whatnot, and all the movies that he produced, why he built the original Tarzan. Pardon?
He did the original.
Tarzan, yes, in the wood, yes, back in the woods. I'm going to show you a bunch of the pictures. I'll run through real quickly. There's files of this is the estate, and these are the buildings that were there. Some of the gardens, they still look the same. Some of the gardens still look the same. I think the fountain is still there. That's a newer picture. Yeah, well, what happened was the reason that he built this here, he bought, because he was Jewish, they wouldn't let him play golf in the golf course. So he said, I'm going to build my own. So he did. He bought 800 acres, built his own golf course, built all these buildings there, and had all these people from all the film studios come up there and stay there with him.
It was a great quote that he had. Well, I didn't 76, I think. And I learned to do it.
Yeah.
And I said, if I had known I'd live this long, I would have taken care of it. And would make the vehicles.
These are the stables, you know, this is the bridge that we're talking about. Tarzan was done in the back here. This was the main entrance. This is off of Main Street as you make the turn onto Zucker. We're changing it right as you make the turn. Those buildings were there. I don't think they might still be. They're still there. There's the bridge. They had all these little things they built in the woods.
And that's the bridge building.
And there were, unfortunately or fortunately, there were Indian caves back there because that's where the stream was. And the Indians had burial sites and whatnot in the caves. They sealed them all up because the kids were going in there and destroying. It was kind of dangerous, so they sealed them all up. The falls, some of these falls were actually in my backyard. My part of where my house is was part of Zucker Estate. This stream that ran along, everybody remembers Delwood. It's one of the, this is one of the penthouse suites. Golf course. View of the golf course. Now we're to New City Park, which you're asking about Collier Avenue, which was built in the 19-teens or so. And there were little tiny lots, and all centered around one community around the lake. They had the lake, the clubhouse, and the clubhouse is still there. The bridge is still there. I don't know if it's the same, but the crib is still there. The kids, they still go swimming in it. Yeah. That's the description of the lighthouse. The lighthouse is still there at the back, somebody's yard. if you look way at the back, of course, the bridge, you look way to that's still there. There's a better picture of it. This is really kind of like what it is today. This is the bridge. It's also called the Mill Pond, and I mean, they had a couple of different names for it. Now we're to the Durant and Willie and Tiffany. Now, my friends lived in this house, and I was in this house numerous times. They swear that it's one. That there's something living, they fixed and crashed back around, and even she moved out, her sister moved in, they said the same thing, that I was there numerous, I spent a lot of time in the house, something never moved around, but I truly believe it could have been.
Where is that?
This is on
my neighbor's house,
Laurel Road, as you go up Laurel Road, it's on the right, I don't know what the street right.
It's back door.
Yeah.
And the fifth house up there.
I'm gonna run it too. Here, your function good.
No, wait, what's 304? It's going back, it's going.
It's 50 what, big numbers,
Fifth house, it's back. You go.
This is now. This is part of. This is next door to the Durant Rose compound because there were numerous houses. You live there?
Yeah, I live in that. My friend bought that house. This is part of it, but this is the carriage.
Okay.
They had the main house. They had a carriage house because
Let's see if
the
that's
garage in Manhattan. They took the train up to the West. Prior to the railroad, they used to get a horse and buggy from the West to the city. So they literally had a carriage house there, and there's two other houses to the prior to that, to the east, to the west side of it, that they built off.
Yeah, I have.
Lanes and to come up, you see Durant Road, and you can first follow Laurel, and then you'll see Road Ford, which is named after Tiffany Road. Who was the dog artist?
Yeah, the door. Yeah, we'll get. Yeah, I have some of those pictures later on.
Okay, that's the name.
Yeah, so that's Durant, and the stop. That's what it's called, Durant. That train station stop. Driver residence, Driver Lane, and I'm not sure where this is. It was just we came up here to one of the resorts. Now this is one of the Lily and Tiffany. She was an artist. She did all these dog designs and animals.
You know what I have her? I have the actual, how do we call it? The plate?
Plate too.
The plate postcard. I have her actual plate to make the postcard. And I have a postcard
That goes with it.
with all the different kinds
Yeah,
of.
no, here, plate. And you receive New City, 1 mile to market, City Studios. Walville House, which is a historic society. This was a boarding house up off of Laurel Road up at the top.
Is it still there?
Yeah, that's still there. I believe the house is still there. On Laurel Road, up towards the top as you cross the hill. And this is one of the 3 ponds, but this is behind the courthouse.
Behind the court.
Yeah, there are 3. The first, they call the first lake, the second lake. A lot of them have been filled in. This up the top where green is, which they call the sheriff's department, where they just redid the parking lot and the whole park. That's the first lake.
It's called Green Road.
Green, oh, we go with green.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we call it. We live right here. That house. Yeah, it's like
This is the burning mill, which for Burn Drive. They did local work. They did local work.
You think of fun?
No, I don't. I don't think I do. This is just one of the, there's a lot of, this is the upper lake, this is a Green Birds, sort of industry.
Old Radcliffe. Yeah, that's a green one.
So they call it a bunch of few different things. This is canoeing on the Hackensack. Never popular.
You fall from the building, you know, the jumper, that's the building. That's what I know. That.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think that's what's.
No, well, this says New City, but it could be West Nile, it could be anything. People are a little wrong on certain things, it just, you know,
That's just like a big, becomes the Hackensack.
well, the Hackensack actually starts up in Norfolk City
Yeah.
and goes down through Lake Lucille. And there's some pretty big sections to it in other areas. But this is probably down near where the reservoir was, you know, along the reservoir where they dug it all out. So this is an early, real early photo picture before 1960. It could have been anywhere in that area, where Focus Farm was and down along towards him.
They would still paddle.
Sorry,
I asked if you could still paddle on.
you're not allowed to take a boat out. You
Like
can fish
that all the way.
maybe past, yeah, you can't go, the reservoir is owned by Ola now or whatever, you can't go, you can fish there, but you can't take a boat out.
I used to play there when I was a kid before they have the resin. They had 40 foot and sticking in the we would go swimming there. But also, that's control. But we start in West Nile.
This was a hardware store, right off of Congress Road here. Home Supply, this is where,
That's for the chicken.
yeah, exactly, yes. This is just, this is an hours. We got about another 10 minutes to do patient or whatnot. We're going to say another 2 hours.
Yeah.
This is say, this is the sales. It's the electrician union up on Phillips Hill Road. It is now the school. The there's a lot. It's one of well, it was the electrical union wall. Lamp lighters. So that's what I keep. The problem is if I put up the backs, it gets to be too much. Now today it's a school. And here's Rockland National Bank. Now this is now where Chase Bank is on the corner of Main Street and Hempstead. At that time they had 8 branches. I think they had 16 or whatever. And this is the Carvel Shopping Center. This is 1960, 1964. This is a map of where everything is in New City. And it's a coordination with this. That's just in there. Then RKL, WRKL, well, these, actually, I'll tell you, it's not RKL. These were just little hand radio operators sent out the cards to people when you communicate with somebody. You sent them a card saying that you spoke with them or who you were. WRKL was actually considered New City for some reason or other. I don't know why. It goes in Pomona.
I know why. That was the guy that ran in the time all 3 out of 4. Sort of the frosted starter and the old art.
That's where it started.
He had it out there, and that's where he started that.
Okay. All right, then it's next one.
And then why is this artist? I took
Now, I should have put my thing, but New City 4, these are the telephone numbers you see. Congress 8, Elmwood, Havisford, those. I just put this in for people who remember the old area code, which no longer exists. This is where the Bennigan's building is today. Property was in a state, it was 21 acres or something, it was for sale, and, it's where the Bennigan's building is. That was just an advertisement for the property. Now, this I don't know, this I bought like a week ago, 2 weeks ago. Sawmill Farms, I've never heard of it. It's like, they grew herbs there. Do you know what that is?
Wally Fleischer.
It's Zippy Fleischer's house?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
that's the owner.
All right, I didn't know, I found it online and said I never heard of it, so. And then Gessel's farm stock, they had Gessel's garage across the street. They had the big farm in the back, they had the dump, I think they brought the food home, they had the garbage trucks, they put the garbage truck dump in the back of the big city. You know, and then party.
Then our old man gets the local service.
Yes, yeah.
And it was strictly for working men's trucks. So I remember if they had cars in there, the guy came in with a truck. If he pulled the car out, he fixed the truck.
Okay. This was just, sharpened sawmill blades, and this thing, but in the Republican Party, this Maximus, does anybody remember Maximus? You good old hangout, huh? This was in the Clarkstown Shopping Center, over where Chico's is. Now, there are very few, this was the brewery on Brewery Road. This is a bottle, I only have the top's cracked off, but I have 300 different Rockland County bottles, I can't find another one. It's a very rare bottle. This is Jones's Dairy. This is gold. It's gold. Well, Brookside. Oh, that's Brookside, which is also gold. Well, they did both. That's Brooks. Yeah. This one. This is Everling. This is Willowbrook Farms. This is Strawtown Dairy. That's a Culpus. And that's the end of our talk tonight. Any other questions?
Thank you.
I can't hear.
Get so retired, man.
Yes, yeah, Roger, the son, ran the business for, all the, up until they closed this reason. So, if you're interested, like I said, May 18th on a Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock, I'll be doing a talk on all of Rockland County at the West Iron Library.
Thank you. Fascinating.
Hope you enjoyed it.